and now black's bishop is kind of in trouble. You can see that black's bishop is attacked, and there's only one square that does not lose material for black immediately. If black plays bishop e6, then pawn 4 immediately loses material for black. For this reason, black's going to have to take. Now it's going to recapture with the rook here. Recapturing with the rook in order to maintain the pressure on the c-file that he has. If he took with the b pawn, then this rook would kind of not be the best rook. It would not be serving a crucial function here. When if the rook takes, the rook is much more active than if the pawn had taken, and the semi-open c-file pressure is going to prove to be very useful later in the game. Not to mention that it's also adding support to d4 square. Black plays e6 in order to try to gain some sort of a defense on the d5 square, but it's not enough. White breaks through here. d5. Now, if the knight moves, this pawn would hang. So black places one defensive resource that he has in order to avoid immediately losing material. He plays rook d8. Now, this pawn is pinned here, so he can't take, otherwise the rook would hang. So white's going to have to remove the pin while maintaining his threats. And he does this through rook c1. Rook c1 maintains the c-file pressure, but also gives protection to the rook, so he can move this pawn at his leisure. Black is going to opt to exchange pawns here to remove his e6 vulnerability. He's going to play e takes d5. White's going to respond with the recapture, and black's going to respond with knight e6. Now, this is you might be thinking that white has an easy capture on with rook takes c7, but this isn't the case. If white played rook takes c7, black would respond with knight takes d5, and he's attacking the rook as well as his bishop simultaneously, and that will result in the loss of the exchange for white. So white doesn't want to do that. White instead play bishop takes f6, removing the attacker on this pawn. So white doesn't always have to be concerned about that pawn. Black obviously recaptures, and now white gets his knight out of the firing line with tempo, with rook e4, knight e4, my apologies. Now, white still has a threat of rook takes c7, and black's bishop is also under attack, and there's only one move that simultaneously protects both, and that's bishop e5. But this bishop, as it turns out, it's just not powerful enough to defend everything. White plays f4, kicking the bishop back to the one square where it maintains defense on the c7 pawn, and now white takes. Now, either way black takes, he's losing material. Black opts to take with the pawn here and allows white the 7th rank. 7th rank was inevitable. And for those of you who don't know, the reason the 7th rank is so good is a couple of reasons. First of all, in any endgame, the king will want to get active into the position. And since most often the king's on the 8th rank, the rook is preventing the king from escaping the 8th rank and getting into the position. Another reason is that a lot of times there are a lot of pawns on the 7th rank, and these will all provide very, very good targets for the rook. As you can see, these two targets are already being attacked. So if there were no pawns on this rank and the king wasn't on the 7th rank, the 7th rank would be virtually worthless. Just something to keep in mind. But black's knight is threatened, so the knight moves to the most active square it has available to it. It doesn't lose it. And now white munches material. So white has managed to win a pawn with the c-file pressure mentioned earlier. But white is allowing black a little bit of counterplay right here with rook c8, rook a c8. By playing rook takes b7, white gave up control of the c-file for the pawn, and now it's going to have to try to neutralize black's pressure if he wants to take the game. He does this through an interesting maneuver, bishop f1. Bishop f1 has a couple of uses. One being, if bishop c4, that's going to allow, that's going to block off the c file, makes black's control of the c file meaningless, virtually. And another is bishop e5, which we'll see a little bit later why that's important. Right now, rook c2, he wants to immediately get on the 7th rank before it's blocked off. And now we can see white's plan, bishop b5. And now we can see why that's so strong. Bishop b5 is maintaining control of the e8 square. Now, black can't play rook e8, where he would have two strong rooks on both the open files in the position, because the bishop is obviously guarding that square. If white allowed that, then the rooks would be able to sweep down into white's position and be far more active than they are in this position. Now, I'm not saying that that would be an instantaneous loss for white, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it's counterplay white does not need to allow black to have. Black in this position plays knight e3, attacking the rook and the pawn simultaneously. But as we can see, as we'll see later, this is where tactics come into play, and white uses tactics in order to basically end the game. White plays rook e1, attacking the knight while protecting his rook, and black gobbles. This proves out to be a very, very bad mistake. Obviously, as a grandmaster, black saw white's response, bishop c4, but he didn't calculate this all the way through. For those of you who don't know, this bishop c4 is attacking this knight, but it's also x-raying through to this f7 square, where if the knight moves, let's say to f6, then this f7 square would become easy prey to either the rook or the bishop. Black, however, thought he had an escape maneuver with an interesting, clever knight c7. Now, you might be wondering why white can't just take. Well, white does take. And black plays d5. This was black's plan. The bishop is pinned to the rook, so if the bishop moves, the rook on c7 will hang. But white has another way of getting out of it. White plays rook d1, answering black's own pin on his bishop with a pin on black's rook. Now, black has to break the pin in order to try to win material here. Otherwise, he's just going to be down a piece, and it would be hopeless. So black tries to break the pin with rook e8, but this allows white a very, very good winning move, bishop b5. The rook's getting revealed, but bishop simultaneously attacking the rook. So if rook takes, bishop takes, and white's up a piece, and it will be a trivial endgame win from here. And from this position, black resigned. Alright guys, that concludes Radjabov versus Navara, Taught to Steal 2012. This is my first attempt at a commentary of any sort. I'm still in the process of learning the finer points of the game myself. I'm by no means a grandmaster or anything ridiculous. These videos are as much for my education and entertainment as yours, and any comments are appreciated. Thanks.